Are you a business owner stuck in fear, doubt, and worry about what the marketplace will look like in the future? Then this show is for you. Strap on your seatbelt and get ready to disrupt and innovate. Here's your host, Lisa Levy.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce to you today Victoria Mensch, your go-to guru for mastering the juggling act of work-life harmony. She is passionate about turning burnout into a distant memory. Victoria is on a mission to show high achievers like you that success and fulfillment can totally vibe together. Join us in today's discussion as we dive into her journey spanning over 25 years at the intersection of academia and executive leadership. With an MBA from UC Berkeley and a PhD in psychology, Victoria has navigated the tech world from giant corporations to nimble startups, always championing wellness and balance. Imagine with me for a moment, flipping stress into your greatest wins with Victoria's productive happiness approach. Because who says you can't crush it at work while living your best life? Victoria, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. Really happy to be here.
I am so excited to hear your take on work-life harmony or work-life balance, work-life integration. There are so many things that we talk about and so many people with very passionate beliefs about what's possible and what's not. Will you give our audience sort of an overview of your journey and how you got to what you're doing today and why it's so important to you?
Right. I'm happy to. So most of my career I actually spent in Silicon Valley in high-tech industry in different roles, in different size of the companies and large global corporations, in small entrepreneurial settings. But I am actually coming from a psychology background. So that was my passion. I really wanted to be a psychologist out of college. And I even started to do that. I got my PhD and I worked for a year or so counseling people and very quickly burned out. Now I know what it is. Back then, I just said, oh, maybe I actually chose wrong. Maybe it wasn't my passion. And I pivoted to a corporate career. But now we all know about the burnout, all the symptoms of burnout, how it's happening, how it goes, and what it leads to. So I actually started to appreciate. I experienced that a couple of more times throughout my career. I started to appreciate the burnout as a symptom, as really as a canary in the mine, right? That shows you that there is something that you need to change. And that was certainly a signal for me to make all those pivots in my career. But what I also realized is that those pivots did not need to be dramatic. So a lot of times, for example, when I quit my psychology career and moved to a corporate career in the high-tech industry, maybe I could have avoided that. It's not like I have regrets, but now I know that these transitions, they can happen in much more organized manner if you know the principles, if you know what's going on, if you know what's happening. So these things that you can call disruptions, right? So some of those could be outside disruptions, just by the nature of the life that we live in. Some of those could be internal disruptions that you just outgrew this role. There's something that was not working. So these transitions that could happen in much more controlled manner, much more purposeful manner, and that could act much more productive manner. That's hence the productive happiness.
And I love that you're pointing out, right, that the disruptions, right, some of these are external, some of them can be internal, and right, sometimes we can choose to make them happen. And it's important to not lose sight of the external and the internal, because those are the things that impact our whole person. And those are those warning signs and the things, those responses that we need to listen to, as opposed to the I am choosing to shake everything up. Um, with the experiences that you've been through and the work that you're doing now, what is it that you're trying to solve or influence with your work?
So this is what I would like to share with you. This is what I'm sharing with the world, right? So So I'm at the point of my career that I went through those changes, right? So I know what I like, I know what I want, and I know that we have power to create the circumstances around us, not just to respond to the external circumstances, but to create those external circumstances. And that's I'm on a mission to do that, that each of us is really powerful. Yes, there are things that are happening outside, the disruptions, they're happening all the time. It's not going to get easier. The disruptions will continue to exist. I'm coming from a Silicon Valley world, from the high tech world, from the emerging technology world. Yes, there are technological disruptions, there are global disruptions, there are health disruptions. There's so many disruptions. It's not going to get easier. There will be more of those disruptions. How do we keep steady? So how do we keep steady? How do we keep in control? How do we keep empowered to actually take advantage of those and create a life of harmony? So that's how I'm on a mission on, not just on the individual level, but on the company level, because it's a choice that we make as well. There's so many myths that we inherited from previous times that are outdated, and it is within our power to change those.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about some of those myths. What are you debunking so that we can innovate how we show up?
So on a personal level, we have this myth that once we achieve a certain level or once we achieve a certain milestone, then we can be happy. And it starts really early. I have a couple of teenagers in my household that they're going through the application processes to high schools and colleges. And I'm looking at those application colleges. Everything is really, uh, everything is just, what's the word for it? Saturated with the culture of achievement, right? So once you achieve that, then you can be happy. So that's actually the biggest myth. The biggest myth is that happiness comes with achievement. Well, there is so many research papers right now that shows the opposite. Like happy people are more successful, right? And the other thing is that this happiness, that fleeting moment after the achievement, 5 minutes or 6 minutes. So I got the new car and I'm happy for 5 minutes, and then I'm still unsatisfied. So that's the biggest myth, that happiness comes with achievement. Well, it turns out that happiness is actually a practice. It's a choice. You choose to behave this way. You choose to react this way. You choose to make the decisions this way. And you practice that. It's kind of like a muscle, the same muscle as the biceps or your core muscles. You practice that. And these are the practices that help you keep steady in that world of disruption. So whatever comes your way tomorrow, another COVID, you got forbid, or another technology, another AI achievement that is threatening to display a job, whatever comes your way, you keep steady. You have these practices. You know how you're going to create your response to that.
I love that the myth that we're debunking is that achievement equals happiness. I am and have spent so much of my life chasing that mindset of that next thing will give me my next promotion, my next raise, my next whatever, opening my own business, whatever that is, right? We're addicts chasing a next high. And I'm starting to see in the younger generation in Gen Z, who are raised by people like me who are achievement junkies, right? Saying, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't feel good. This doesn't work. And so do you see, hope and optimism for that next generation, that they're trying to find purpose above just achievement?
Yeah, so there is a lot of I think there is a lot of kind of context within the conversations for that younger generation, that they don't just follow what we told them, and we told them what our parents told us. So they are charting their own course, and there is much more now. There is much more talk. They're much more immersed into conversations of a purpose. What is purpose, right? So how do I live a life of purpose? Which I think is fantastic. There is a lot of misunderstanding of how to do that and what to do, around this. And there's still all these pressures that we have. Oh, I need to have food on the table. I need to have a roof over my head. So there is a lot of that. But I think they lead the conversation with that, right? So there is definitely a push to find that purpose and live a life of purpose, so that it's not just an achievement in a sense of kind of externally validated milestones, right? That we're all used to, but they are searching for that bigger kind of fulfillment, a bigger purpose for them, which can be, externally, I'm going to change the world, or it could be, well, I want that life of harmony, and that's what it means for me. So I think there is a more more sovereignty, I would say, in setting those goals. Now, that's what I see in younger generation. That's what I hope for.
Yeah, well, and I'm hoping for it too. And part of that hope is that they are actually a tad bit more self-aware, younger, right? For many of
Yeah.
people of my age, right, we sort of found our true selves probably in our mid 30s, approaching 40, where we actually got to this point of, I am okay with who I am. And I am seeing with kiddos in my world, right, those comments coming out in their 20s. And I am so in awe of that. And I'll be really honest, a tad bit jealous, right? Because they're having this awakening at a point in time when they can write a whole different path than what might have been there for them if they had stayed in the mindset that we had ingrained in them.
Yeah. Well,
Looking, oh, please.
in fairness, they're coming from a different background, right? So if you look again at the kind of evolution of humanity, so we're less and less dependent, we're less and less dependent on just survival, right? So we're less and less in the survival mode. So really, so that's actually the biggest irony of our life, of our times, is that right now we live in the best, well, especially here, in the West, right? So we live in the best time. So there is abundance of resources. There is, technological advancements. There is just so much. We live in such a rich time that has never been there before, and yet we're still psychologically, right? So we're still unhappy. So like the richest we've ever been, and we're unhappier we've ever been. So that's actually the biggest irony. But I think that kind of upcoming generation, they are already realizing that they're not in that survival mode that we were in, our parents were in, our grandparents were in. So they actually have that breathing space to actually think about, so, oh, what's beyond the survival? And that we survived, right? So what's beyond?
That's, and getting past that fight or flight in that original sort of, reptilian brain to looking beyond that is, that's a perfect distinction from, one generation to the next, and where they're finding themselves. With the work that you're doing, what are some common challenges and roadblocks that you help people overcome?
Right. So I think it's a practice. Again, it's a practice. Like harmony is a practice, happiness is a practice. You can practice this on a personal level, on a corporate level as well. I think I actually love working with the corporate clients, because once you find a leader who is going on that path, that change trickles down within the organization. And what we find is, better productivity, more stable teams, right? People who are happy to go to work. They don't question, they find purpose in their work, and so on and so forth, and the personal level as well. So I think actually what I find is the biggest challenge is to get people on that path. So yes, I'm unhappy, but maybe that's the way it should be. Why should I be happy? That's very interesting on the personal level. So, well, this is it, right? So I need to work hard to where I am. Why should I be happy? So that's actually the biggest hurdle, that to help people realize that each of us is worthy. There is no reason for us not to strive for the life we love. There is no reason to make those compromises to live the life we love. It does not mean, that you have to quit everything that you like. So that's actually a very interesting outcome often, that people think that this is the job, that they're in the right, similar to my stories, like, oh, I chose wrong, right? So I thought it was my passion, I chose wrong. So it's really not that, right? So for most of the time, people are in the jobs that they like. It's just everything else around it, the way they approach it, the attitude around it, the way they care about themselves, the way they set boundaries, the way they place the priorities outside of themselves. That's the problem. And once you fix that, you actually find that people love their jobs. They love doing their jobs. They're much more productive. They start measuring their contribution in value rather than in time, and so on and so forth. So the biggest hurdle is really to get on that path that you are in power to create that life, and there is no reason to make compromises not to live the life you love.
And once you've gone through that point and you understand, right, you're on the path, you're on the journey, looking into the future, Victoria, what are the things that you're most optimistic about for people on that path?
Well, what I'm optimistic about is that, again, this power, right? So we're kind of switching from the victim mode into creator mode. So you're truly getting in the creation mode. It's like I am creating my reality, and it's a very powerful place to be. Going back to the disruption and innovation, it is a place of innovation, and it is a place of kind of being resilient to those disruptions, embracing those disruptions. One of those you can choose to create yourself. And some of those that are coming your way, you know how you're going to react. So it is a place of power. I think that's the most optimistic part, that there is a lot of power that each of us carry with us. Each of us has that resource to make those changes. Each of us has a resource to be in that creator mode, regardless of whether you were a kindergarten teacher or you're a student, or you're a CEO of a global corporation, or you're a homemaker. It really does not matter. Each of us has that power to be in our creator mode, right? And be in that place where everything is your choice, basically. Well, and your responsibility.
And that's a good, right, parallel, right? It's a choice and your responsibility. If your ideas have sparked interest and curiosity with the audience, where are the best places for them to find out more?
So the best place is LinkedIn. I am on LinkedIn, Victoria Mensch, and you can learn everything about my work. I do mentorship. I do group mentorships, and I also do retreats where within the 5 days we actually go through this process of getting from that victim to creator mode, of resetting your goals, of reigniting your passion, and creating a blueprint to take back with you into your regular life and up level your life going forward.
All right. So all of the LinkedIn link will be in the show notes for anybody who's interested in learning more and finding a way to contact Victoria. In today's conversation, I very much enjoyed looking and focusing that the disruption and the innovation can be internal, right? These are choices that we can make to find happiness, to find joy in the things that we do, and remember and reignite that what we do for our profession might be our passion, and we may have simply chosen to forget how to be happy and enjoy that part of the ride. So with that, it's Spider-Man with the Spider-Man theme, right? With great power comes great responsibility, and we have the power inside of ourselves to choose the path of happiness. Audience members, you know my rules. Don't get left behind. Join me next time.
That's it for today's episode of Disrupt and Innovate. Head over to iTunes and subscribe to the show.